Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. I am, as always, your very grateful host. Folks, thank you so much for everything you've been doing lately. All of your likes, your shares, your subscribes, the hundreds, and I mean hundreds of DMs you guys have hit me with in the last 2 weeks. I know we've had a lot of really powerful guests on, and today is no exception, but wow, you guys have been DMing like crazy. I think I've responded to all of you. If I haven't, I'm going to go back through it again, I promise, and I will. I'll get to everybody, I promise. So just hang in there. But thank you for everything you're doing, because if you're not out there doing everything that you're doing, I can't sit here and do what I'm doing. So very grateful for every one of you. As we get going, you guys all know what time it is. It is time to pay some bills. So let me take a sip of my preferred beverage. Man, piping hot. I just made a new one right before this interview started. Oh, there it is. And you guys know what it is if you're a friend of the program, and I know you are. We are drinking Freedom Hill Coffee today at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean bean. It is absolutely fantastic. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which is why we support them. You all know how important veterans are to us here at the Power Man. They're important to Freedom Hill Coffee as well. So, Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Check them out at Freedom Hill Coffee. Tell them Power of Man sent you. And I'm going to go ahead and load up one more time so I can keep up with this youngster that I have on the other side of the table from me. Okay, my goodness, I am ready to go. Here we are. Now, just given this guy's lead, and it's going to take me probably half an hour. So strap on, the seatbelt. Get ready to go, everybody. Um, Please welcome to the show best-selling author, fitness coach, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, church pastor, owner of Fitness and Move Inc., and like I said, author of The Gospel of Fitness, A Rational Approach to Aging Gracefully, which I have failed at miserably. So I'm looking to learn quite a few things from this gentleman today. Please welcome Steve McKinney. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great, Roy. Hey, thank you for having me on the show. I'm really excited about this, and it's actually Fitness and More Inc. So,
Oh,
but we need to
goodness.
we need to move anyway, so it's good. I probably could have sent you a typo. It's very possible.
You know what? I think I just can't read my own handwriting this
It's
late in the
all
day.
good.
So I'm so glad you corrected me. Oh my gosh. Fitness and More Inc.
Yes, Fitness and
Got
More
it.
Inc.
All right. I want to make sure that this is right for everybody. So it will be in the show notes. It will be correct in the show notes. And thank you. But Steve, hey, thank you you were so gracious to send me your book, The Gospel of Fitness. It was a fantastic read. I'm going to start the program myself, but we'll talk about that later. Give
Perfect.
everybody an idea of who Steve McKinney is, what you're about, how you got here, and why you're on the show.
Yeah, no, so my here's my thing, and I'll go back a long way and just kind of how this whole weight training thing started. My grandfather, I was 9 years old. He was buying me a birthday present. And when I was a kid, I was just intrigued by strength and muscle. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And I remember watching a Mr. Olympia. And I'm like, man, that's just so awesome. And then I would watch the Olympics and I would watch Alexei. He was the Russian strongman and he power cleaned over 500 pounds. I remember all those things. So anyway, I'm like, Grandpa, I want a set of weights. So we went to a place called Kmart. You familiar with?
Oh yeah, I remember Kmart.
Everyone laughs when I say that
Yeah.
because everyone remembers that. They're still open. They're still open in places. And he bought me this weight set called the Ulcatron with a big K in it. And there's the cement weights. And I just, here's the way I put it. It would have been we call it the iron bug because usually weight is iron. That was the cement bug, but it bit me. And so I just love lifting weights. I bought a little pamphlet from a guy named Franco Colombo, Arnold Schwarzenegger's
Oh
training
yeah,
partner. And
absolutely.
he was a 2 hour a day, 6 day a week training guy. And here I am at 9 years old. I'm in the basement and I'm lifting weights. I'm making no gains, but I'm loving it.
Yeah.
And so from there, I just progressed with that whole thing and continued to lift. I was actually a competitive bodybuilder. I won the 1990 Mr. Southern Illinois. I'm just kind of into stuff. And so when I go all in.
That's awesome.
And then just kind of tried to live the best healthy lifestyle I could. Both of my parents died at a very young age, and I think kind of that was kind of where I took my garage, converted it into a gym, and I got a business license in a residential area. I had 50 monthly paying customers, paying me $20 a month back then to come to use the gym. My neighbors were furious with me because I'm using all the parking, and so it was pretty chaotic. But the thing that I
All
noticed
right.
was everyone had questions. Hey, could you set me up a diet? Hey, could you set me up a routine? And I thought, I was spending a lot of time doing that. And I thought, I'm just going to transfer this to one-to-one private personal fitness training. So that's where I went in that direction. And then what I did, Roy, was I started refining everything. I started keeping track of everything that everyone did. And what I was looking for, I wasn't looking for just like a short program. Even though I have the book written for a short program, that's the introduction. What I was looking for what I call a lifestyle of fitness. I wanted to create this lifestyle where people could, reach their goals, but then maintain them for the rest of their life. And then I wanted to do it in a safe and efficient way. It took a lot of experimentation, and that is where I started refining things. And that's where I came up with my 3W approach to fitness. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure. And then how the book came about. And once again, I'll go back to my parents. I just go back and I think about that. And I'm like, they just didn't live a healthy lifestyle. And it's a shame because they missed so much. And I just thought, man, I don't want people, if there's anything we can do to make life better for people, that was the whole goal. And so I don't want people to miss out on their grandchildren and things like that if we can avoid that. And so that's kind of where that came from. And then um, how the book came about is I train like I went to a pastor's conference years ago, and I was training a buddy of mine, and he knew I was a personal trainer. We had talked online. And I took him through a workout, and he goes, "Hey, man, that was the best workout I've ever been through in my life." I go, "Yeah, I got this down to a science." And so he would always ask me questions, and I have a private Facebook page where people can ask me questions. And so one day he was asking me questions, maybe 6 months ago. I don't remember how long. His name's Pete. I said, Pete, listen, I have a book that I'm 90% done with. Now, I was just going to post the book in my private page. And he goes, well, that's interesting. He said, I have a publishing company. And so he said, send me over your transcript. So I sent it over. He's like, we'd love to work with you. And so then they set up a book tour. We did that. And so, yeah. And so it's kind of taken off from there. So that's kind of the whole backstory in the middle of how the whole, personal fitness training thing came about.
I love it. Those things don't just happen either. I mean, this
I
all
know.
gets, yeah, this gets put together and God knows what he's doing.
And that's exactly, yes, that was totally for me. I'm like, oh, this is totally a God moment right here. You don't want to miss that. And
Nice.
so I just rode that wave. And then I get to, like I said, I do tours. And what I love to do is I like to get up and we had several we did there. And I like to get up in front of people and explain everything and then open it up for question and answer. And because I run every question through my framework, I can pretty much answer um, most fitness questions very simply because I'm running it through a particular framework, which is the way that I lift weights and the reason I do it. So that makes it very understandable for people. And the process is very simple. Now, it's not easy, but it is simple.
Sure. Now I want to get to the book for sure, but I
Sure.
want to I want to just real quick touch on a couple of these things. Like, you were a silver medalist in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, just
Yeah.
tell us quickly what got you into that and how that has helped you on your fitness journey. Because a lot of guys I know are into the BJJ stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you had mentioned that you work with a lot of veterans. I was just at a
Mhm.
conference, I'm sorry, a seminar this weekend with my son, who's very good. He's a very high level competitor. I train him just like I train people in the book because a trained muscle is a trained muscle. We can talk about that too. But are you familiar with Andy Stump? Um, Andy's
No,
a
I don't
he's
believe
a
so.
he's a veteran guy as well. But anyway,
Okay.
he's got a pretty big podcast. But he was there. I got to roll with him, which was an absolute blast. And so, but the
Cool.
jujitsu thing, we started, gosh, I started 15, 20 years ago, once again, in a garage next door. I have my personal training garage. I have my jujitsu garage. My kids are young. And so they were very young, but I just wanted to train them. And so we started working on that stuff. And did the same thing, had a bunch of kids come into class. So, and then we kind of went from there and found a local gym. And our coach, we're still buddies, we're still best of friends. And he was on The Ultimate Fighter. So I trained under him for a long time, did a lot of competitions. But as I've gotten older, kind of backed away a little from that. But the reason I do that is because I've always been into athletics as well. And I find that weights helps every part of your life. People talk about mobility, functionality, and things like that. All that stuff's fine and dandy, but the bottom line is this: you've got to keep your strength. And most people waste time with so much stuff. And it's like the whole idea is if you stay strong and you keep your muscle strong throughout a full range of motion and you practice something, you're going to be able to do that thing. The practicing, you'll hear people say, "Oh, I'm doing functional training for baseball." Listen, the bottom line is this: if you want to get good at baseball, you do baseball. It's called specific adaptation. It's called the SAID principle, specific adaptation to impose demand. If I can keep you strong throughout a full range of motion with no injuries and you practice your sport, 99% of your sports are going to be better because strength is a major factor. And what happens to us as we age, and this hits us about the age of 35, that strength begins to decline. So for me, I at the seminar this weekend, I'm 20 years older than everyone there. But I'm in the game. We did 8 hours. We did 4 hours one day, 4 hours the next. I rolled with a bunch of the young guys. I got beat up a little bit. It's all good. I love it. I still have fun with it. And for me, it's such a joy to do. I'm a big jujitsu guy. I still train, regularly. As I've gotten older, I can't do it as much, but I just know how to train to keep longevity in the middle of it. It's the same principle that I use in weights is training gracefully, aging gracefully. Those are the ideas behind it. And
Sure.
so, yeah, the Pan Ams are kind of a bigger tournament. And I did maybe a couple of locals, and I'm like, let's just jump in the fire and see what happens. And I'll tell you, that first match um, in the Pans was a lot of fun. I fought a guy that had a lot of energy, and so that was fun. I beat him. Then I fought another guy, and I beat him. And then I was in the final with a guy that had a first round bye and then had a pretty easy second round. And I always joke, I'm like, oh, he was on performance enhancing drugs for sure. Because in the final, I was going with him. And there was one point in the match, and never felt anything like this before. But I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. My body was I was fighting for my life. And so yeah, but I ended up losing by points in that final. But boy, it was a blast. It was a real accomplishment to go out there and put it on the line, win, lose, or draw.
Absolutely.
So,
Congratulations on the finish. I mean, those
oh
that's
yeah,
that's
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, and then on top of everything else, you're a pastor.
yeah.
I mean, briefly, how do you get into that? How does that come
By
into your life?
accident,
And then,
by
okay,
accident.
there you go.
It wasn't something that I wanted to do. You know, going back to my parents, my mother died on Christmas morning in my arms, 1988.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And thank you. But once again, you look at there's a plan behind every plan. It's kind of
Right.
weird. But anyway, her dying words to me was serve Jesus and tell your brother to serve Jesus. Now we grew up in church, but it just wasn't really something that we did. I grew up Catholic, which is great, but for me it's just something that just really connect to me. And so but there was a point in my life where I was trying to go back to church and just nothing really seemed to fit. But there was a point in my life where I got on my knees and I just prayed a simple prayer and was like, Jesus, I've heard a lot about you, but I don't even know if you're real. If you're real, show me. Nothing happened magically, but I just noticed about 2 weeks later, something happened. And what the number one thing that I noticed was my desires began to change. The things that I used to like, I didn't like anymore. And the things I never liked, I started to like. So I think it's a real, thing that happens. And so I began to look at life differently then. Started attending some local church through a circuitous set of circumstances. I was leading Bible studies and kind of the church kind of fell apart. And I was kind of the guy. I was just kind of thrust into that situation. And that's probably the hardest job I've ever done in my life, being a pastor. It's a
No
very
kidding.
hard job. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of stress to it because people look at you as the answer to everything, and you're not. You got to point them in the right direction. And so, but I have a really good church. My church is 2 minutes that way. My gym is 2 minutes the other way. And so I live in a very small little world, but yeah, it's and it's kind of wrote the book in a sense because when I went sat down to write it, I thought, as I was re-looking at the book, I thought, I don't know how to write very well. I write sermons every week, but I don't know how to write books. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to write a book sermon. So that book that you read, that's how I preach. I put things in a logical order and I explain what I'm talking about, and I try to make things as rational as I can in the middle of it. So that's kind of how
Yeah.
that all came together.
That's crazy. I mean, there's a very big difference between, worshiping as part of the flock and leading the flock.
Yes.
So, I mean, I recognize that for sure. That's
Yeah.
not a small undertaking.
Not at all. And I try to surround myself. I'm not I'm a kind of more visionary. I'm not a very good detail person. So I surround myself with people who are detail. I just fill in my blanks with other people who are very good at what they do. I'm not a micromanager in any way, shape, or form. And the only time I step in is if there's a problem and I have to fix it. But I'm just really I don't think Christianity has as many rules as people make them to be. I'm very free with how I look at my Christianity. I look at it totally differently. I would think than most people, but it's so much better to look at it that way, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want to get into a sermon, but I was about to go in that direction. But yeah,
I felt you like stopping. I'm like, all right, I
I
don't know where he's
stopped
going.
myself.
All right, because I know you want to talk about the book too. So,
Yes, of course,
all right,
absolutely.
but I appreciate you, sharing that. I wanted to kind of cover those different areas of
Sure.
things you're involved with. All of that seems to be in the book in some capacity somewhere. I mean, you even quote apostles,
Yeah.
in your in your writing. So, all right, so let's wrap it up as we get into the book. The reason you wrote the book, the purpose of the book is.
The purpose of the book is it's on the cover, How to Age Gracefully. I want people to understand that you can actually age gracefully, that you can actually enjoy your life as you age. And and I also another big thing is there's a plethora of misinformation out there. And and I try to dispel those myths because you have so many things that go on. I was on a podcast, a super nice doctor, and he was into weights and was into health and fitness. And I was explaining to him, I think he's 50 years old, and I was explaining to him, I said, listen, as you age, it's not just training your muscles, it's saving your joints. And some of the information out there with these programs that are out there. People are throwing weights and jumping on boxes and all that kind of stuff. And that's fun if you're young and you want to do that, but it's not actual exercise in the sense of safety. So training your muscles and saving your joints, that is so important because joint health, you can't get those things back. They have to be replaced. And so when I was talking to him at the end of the program, he goes, you know what? He goes, I've been doing this for a while. He goes, my joints hurt. He goes, I'm going to change my approach because what you said just makes so much sense. And so you can still get a great physique. I've trained bodybuilders with this. It's just the idea is different. The idea is different. I always say I'm a one percenter when I have clients come in. I'm like, listen, you're going to hear so many people talking about training the core and, being able to use functionality and mobility. All those things are great and fine and dandy. But I want you to be strong in the biomechanical ranges of motion that your body actually is supposed to move in those patterns. And if you're strong there, it's going to change your life. It's going to be safe, and then I can show people how to look better and feel better as well. But to me, that's secondary because I think there's so many things that you need to primary look at when you're lifting weights. If you do it properly, there's something released called myokines, and these myokines are little signals. And what they do is they send signals to other parts from your muscles to other parts of your body, your organs, and they say, hey, listen, we're doing some good stuff in this area, and we want you to come join the party. So it helps your whole body. And that's, most people look at the outward, and I think that's important, but I'm always looking inside because there's a lot of things going on with proper training that we want to, our heart function is better. Stroke volume, what's called stroke volume, gets better. My resting heart rate is 38, which is insane, but it's from lifting weights properly for years. I'm sure there's a genetic factor that figures into that, but when I go to the doctor for my checkup, I always warn the nurse I'm going to be really low, lower than most people, because I had a nurse try to call an ambulance on me one day. She thought I was dying. So I'm like, no, I'm good. So, but all those things figure in.
Yeah, I was about to say that's almost not breathing right there, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Um,
but one heartbeat away from not having another one. So
yeah, so I mean, it's probably a good thing that she was ready to do that for you, but that may be a genetic, code. But no, I know that in the book, in terms of the myths, I know in the book
yes.
one of the myths you talk about is, how people say calories don't matter. And you're like, wait a minute, they absolutely matter. They matter a lot. Maybe speak to that, and
Yeah.
if there's another one or two real heavy myths that are out there, we can knock them out before we dive into what the book's about.
Absolutely. Okay. So calories matter. Okay. Now, I understand the arguments that, don't count calories. I'll give you a couple of examples. There's some very famous, some very high level doctors that are on YouTube, and they talk about low carb dieting. And they say, don't count calories. And, and I've just never seen that work. But they use low carb dieting. Now, the idea behind that is what they're trying to do is they're trying to change your body from burning sugar to burning fat. And the idea then is if I'm burning fat, I'm not going to have as much hunger. I'm going to be more, there's going to be a satiety factor after I eat that I'm not actually hungry. Now, here's what's interesting. I will see people like they'll comment on stuff and they'll say, hey, listen, I'm doing this, but I'm not losing weight. And so the doctor will answer and say, oh, you're eating too much fat. Think about that. So the bottom line is you're eating too many calories. It still has to be calorie controlled. Now, let's take it to another level. And I use this idea as well. A lot of people like they'll eat more. There's a lady named Dr. Barbara Rolls, and I think she did her research in Penn State University. She wrote the book. The book was called Volumetrics. And what she did with it, she said that most people eat the same volume of food per day. And she said, so the idea then is to eat foods that are higher in volume and lower in calories, which I think is a brilliant idea.
Hmm.
So think about it this way. Think about an apple as opposed to a small Snicker bar. They're both 100 calories, but what she says is eat that food that fills your stomach up. Now, what happens when you get hungry, there's a hormone response, and the hormone is called ghrelin. And it's God's way of saying, hey, eat because I'm starving. And so the ghrelin tells your body to eat. Now, the ghrelin is a signal that comes from your stomach to your brain. It takes about 20 minutes to get there. And so, but when you're full, you get a leptin response, and the leptin is saying, hey, I'm full. So what she's saying is eat these foods that are higher in volume, and they're going to fill you up. So she's using a hormonal balance to make sure that you're full. And so, but you're still looking at caloric intake as a whole. But I do like the idea of using more volume to keep yourself fuller. So the arguments can go in a lot of different ways. But I think sometimes it gets so complicated. So what I try to do with everything is simplify it. And then I tell people to use that volume approach, but keep an eye on your calories as well. And I think that's very, very important. Does all that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially the part about the volume, because I'm going, yeah, I mean, same calories, but one's going to fill you up a little bit better than the other one, which is actually probably going to make you more hungry because it's nothing but sugar. So,
Exactly.
like,
And it's just,
I see that.
yeah, it's eating real food.
Right.
Now, some of the other myths out there are the 5 day a week, I got to work on an hour at a time. And that is just so common. And I always say that's like having a part-time job. And because I don't have
Yeah.
20 hours a month to give away, but if I can, my workouts are two short, high intensity workouts per week. You start out at three, so you learn the program. You cut down to two 15-minute workouts per week. And so we're looking at a half hour. We're looking at 2 hours a month of actual training time. Now, think about it this way. You see a person go into the gym, they train for an hour, they do a set, last about 20 seconds, they rest, then they come back, they do a set, last about 20 seconds. If you look at the actual time that they're actually working out, one guy said it's 9 minutes. It's 9 minutes. So I had a guy come in the other
Wow.
day, just last week, a really nice guy. His name's Matt. He goes, "Yeah, Steve, I like to work out 5 days a week." I'm like, "Matt, if you want to work out 5 days a week, that's fine." I go, "That doesn't fit my narrative. It doesn't fit my idea." I said, "But if you're using that as your time for social activity, that's perfectly fine. But let me take you through a workout." And I took him through it usually takes me two exercises to convince people that this is a better way to work out. And he was totally stoked. He goes, I feel like I've worked out for hours. I've never felt anything like that. And so, but it's just focused training and training muscles, keeping the load on the muscle and training safe, but putting the work in. And so the myth there is you don't have to train that long. I can get people great results in a shorter period of time, save joints, make them feel better, and they're on their way. So that's how I approach that.
Nice. Any other big myths that we want to break before we start talking about it?
Yeah, I'll just go into one more that doesn't always fit us, but sports specific training. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of places that do sports specific training. Okay. The word specific actually means specific. So the only way to get better at your sport is to play your sport. There's a
Right.
said principle. It's called specific adaptation to imposed demand. To me, it's just common logic and it's common sense. And so I'm not swinging a heavy baseball bat so that I can hit a ball farther. You know what I'm doing? I'm hitting my reps with the ball. I'm having a live pitcher pitch to me if I'm playing baseball. That's the skill practice. And so people mistake the skill versus the actual training itself. The skill is an actual skill. I don't play baseball to get better at basketball. I play basketball to get better. I don't study English to get better at math. Once again,
Right.
you have an industry that is money driven and not regulated. And so what you have is you have influencers telling people to do all this kind of stuff, and it makes absolutely no sense to me. When I was playing sports, I played that particular sport, and guess what? I got better in that sport. And then as I grew a little stronger, I even got better with that. So there's this connection in all of the things that we deal with.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so now as we move into the book, and if more myths come up, obviously,
Yeah,
throw them out there. Let's make sure we cover them. But one of the biggest pieces of the book is it's all based on this 3W approach.
yes.
So tell everybody about what the 3W approach is, what it means, and why you base the book on it.
Absolutely. So when I go speak publicly, I always tell people, or even now, I tell people, hey, hold up three fingers. And if you look at the three fingers, if you don't have a broken one from jujitsu like I do, it'll look actually like three fingers, but it makes a W. It's weight
Right.
training, walking, and watching your diet. Easiest way to remember it. So weight training has a specific purpose, as I've been explaining. The purpose of weight training is to actually make your muscles stronger. And here's how we do that. We do that by using the principle of time under tension or time under load. And what I mean by that is that muscle that we're training, we keep tension on that muscle for a particular amount of time. Now, I didn't go into super detail in the book because it could get very complicated. I had them count reps on the book, which is fine, but the idea is still there. And so, what I try to do is keep people under the load anywhere in the area of, let's say, 60 to 90 seconds. It kind of seems optimal. Just based on what you're doing, you're going to be in that zone, right in that area, right? So here's why I do that. There, you have four different muscle fiber types. You have what's called slow oxidative, fast oxidative glycolytic, and fast glycolytic. Now, your muscles fatigue in what's called a sequential order, meaning when I start a set and the time under load, the tension's there, the SO, it begins to fatigue. It fatigues relatively quickly. Then we get to the second one, it fatigues. Then the third one fatigues. You're after that fourth one, fast glycolytic. The reason you're after that one, that is the thickest muscle bundle. That when you stimulate that, that is the trigger that tells the muscle to actually grow. And most people terminate the set before they get to that fourth muscle fiber type. That's why they do a set, stop, do a set, stop. And over time, the volume still works. You still get the result, but why not do it in a shorter period of time and keep that muscle under load? The problem is it becomes very, very uncomfortable. So when it starts getting uncomfortable, to me, that burn happens, the lactic acid is building up. To me, that's when the set starts. And so what I tell people is keep your mind connected to the muscle, feel what's happening, and take it to muscular failure where the movement, if you're doing a pull down, doesn't move anymore. But when it doesn't move, you just keep pulling at that pace. You don't panic. You continually breathe, because if you hold your breath grown, it's like putting a potato on your tailpipe in your car and everything backs up. We want the constant blood flow because a secondary benefit is I'm going to make your heart stronger. Your blood volume, your stroke volume is going to be better. Now, the interesting thing about that fourth muscle fiber type is it takes anywhere from 2 seconds to 20 seconds to actually stimulate that muscle fiber type. Once that's stimulated, the set's over. Here's the interesting thing. It can take anywhere from 4 to 10 days to recover. Not only to recover, but to compensate or super compensate. That's why that I can have people train 2 days a week and still get stronger, because the recovery factor is most people, what they do is they recover enough to get into the gym and work out again the next day. I don't want that. I want you to not only compensate or recover, I want you to super compensate and actually get stronger. So there are people that I only train, and this will sound crazy, but I have proof of it, one 15-minute workout per week. And it works. I have a guy that came in, and I have multiple guys that are like this. But I had a guy that came in and had shingles, huge shoulder problem, and he was willing to work. We started him off at 2 days a week. I'm like, Ron, this is too much for you. I go, you're not recovering. Let's cut to 1 day a week. A year later, he couldn't lift his arm. A year later, he's lifting his arm with strength. And so the weight training idea is to stimulate muscle in a proper, safe way, making sure that you don't get hurt. We do not throw weights. We do not do power cleans. We do not jump around. We're in there for one reason, to biomechanically train your muscles in a safe range of motion and to keep using that functionality that we need, and to keep those muscles strong. That'll help every part of your life. And also weight training, it helps fight osteoporosis, osteopenia. It helps with the heart, as I said, because when you're training like that, you're going to get when you stop the set, you're going to get a rush of blood that goes into towards your heart from the muscle. But a lot of times the heart can't contain that much blood at one time. So it has to have a little holding cell, and then the heart has to pump very strongly to get the muscle, I'm sorry, to get the blood out of the heart and then
Okay.
bring in more so the stroke volume is better. Does that make sense? I don't want
Yeah.
to over scientize, make that scientific, but that's the idea behind it. Now, the second thing that I use is walking. And with walking, I suggest to people a 30-minute casual walk within 15 minutes after dinner. Now, let me go back to what I was saying earlier about leptin and ghrelin. So, when you're hungry, your body releases that ghrelin hormone. The interesting thing is, after you eat, it takes anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes for the leptin hormone to say, hey, I'm full. So, what I tell people is right after dinner, especially if you're trying to lose body fat, it helps other ways too, even if you're not. But within 15 minutes, you take a 30-minute walk. Guess what that is? That's 45 minutes. That allows that leptin hormone to say, hey, I'm actually full. So most people go from the dinner table to the couch and then watch TV, and then they get a snack and they're doing mindless eating. I say go outside, take a 30-minute casual walk. And then when you're doing it, Rory, I want you to look around and enjoy this beautiful world and this earth that we live in. Look at the sky, the trees. I take pictures of things just to keep my mind and occupied in the middle of that. A lot of times I take my grandson out for a walk too, and so I love doing that as well. But the walk is casual, and here's why. And let's dispel another myth. You don't need tons of cardio to lose body fat. Too much cardio releases cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and a lot of times what it does, it elevates your appetite. And so then people come home, they overeat, and they totally wasted the idea behind the actual aerobic activity itself. You get aerobic activity in the training program. You don't need extra aerobic activity. So the walk, even if you're not trying to lose body fat, is still going to be medicine, as I call it, for your brain, because we live in this stressful world, and I need that time just to kind of chill. Now, if it's cold outside, what I will do is I'll put on some instructional jiu-jitsu videos and watch it on my treadmill. But I utilize all my time properly. That's why I kind of can do a lot of things because I don't waste a lot of time. I'm very focused on what I do. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So then
And
the third W is
right.
watching your diet. And that is the hardest part for people. So if you're losing weight, we have to create a slight caloric deficit. We just have to do that. It's the only way you're going to lose body fat because, body fat is just stored energy and calories are energy. So we don't starve ourselves, but we create a slight deficit. Now, here's the best way to look at it. Let's say I'm going to give you 2,000 calories a day for your weight loss. I kind of take that a little lower at first so people can kind of adjust, but we can adjust that based on the person. I put in some general guidelines. But I always tell my clients, listen, that 2,000 calories a day is your budget. Think of it as money. I want you to go shopping anywhere you want. You can shop, you can buy $2,100 items per day. Whatever. You can buy one every half hour. That's perfectly fine. You can buy a $2,000 item at the end of the day. That's called intermittent fasting. You can cut it into 4 meals. You can cut it into 3 meals. You can cut it into 2 meals. Make it fit you and then try to eat real food in the middle of it. But do not exceed your caloric budget. And don't go too low because if you go too low, thinking you're going to lose more body fat, that's not going to happen. Because if you go too low, then you're going to start cutting into muscle tissue, and that's not what we want. Initially, when people lose weight because of glycogen levels and they start beginning to reduce caloric intake as a whole, men will lose anywhere from 7 to 11 pounds in 2 weeks, sometimes more based on where they start. Women, 5 to 7 pounds. Now, a lot of that is water weight. People say, well, it's only water weight. I'm like, no, no, no. It's glycogen and water, but you have to lose that first before you start digging into the body fat. Then the body fat levels start coming off. At first, you'll lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Then it'll lower to 1 pound. Then it might be a half pound every 2 weeks. But guess what? We're creating a lifestyle. We're not just creating a goal of losing this weight in a particular time. We're creating a lifestyle. And if you're thinking about what I just said, and maybe you're losing a pound a week, that's 50 pounds in a year if you have that much to lose. So if we create that lifestyle, yeah, will you mess up? Of course we mess up. But the whole idea is we keep plugging away. We reduce stress on our body. We sleep more. We don't do excessive exercise because we want to control cortisol. Cortisol is what's called catabolic. And what that means, it eats away muscle tissue and it also contributes to fat gain. So we want that cortisol level to be as low as we can. It's important to have it after workout. It helps with the recovery time, but to be in a constant state of cortisol is horrible. It's horrible for your psyche and it's horrible for your body. So that's
Sure.
how I approach that. And then I also tell people try to drink up to a gallon of ice cold water per day because it burns 123 extra calories because your body has to warm up that ice cold water.
And that's the first time I've heard that when I read that in the book. That's why I'm smiling right now because everything I've heard is, oh, room temperature water and ice water is not good for you because it upsets your digestion or some kind of thing. I drink ice water. I mean, even with my coffee, I'm sitting here with ice water, and that's
Yeah,
fuels me all day long. I can't stand warm water to drink, but you're telling me it's actually a good thing because of the calorie burn.
it makes a difference. Now, here's what I
Yeah.
would say. I'm painting broad strokes here. And so the whole idea though, and what I want people to understand is become your own nutritionist and become your own trainer. Kind of keep an idea. Hey, I feel better drinking ice water, or I don't feel better drinking ice water. Find
I
what
see.
fits
Okay.
you. So I don't make laws. I give general principles, but I also give space in those principles to find what works best for my clients.
And you talk about that in the book a lot too, feeling better.
It's all about feeling better. You've got to engage that. You're not torturing yourself. This is a simple program. It's not easy, but I'm not torturing myself. I'm living life in a totally different way. That's why it's aging gracefully, because as you get older, it gets harder. I need more recovery time at 64. I did 8 hours of jujitsu this weekend. I'm not going to train. I might not even train this week. I'll do a little bit of jujitsu. I might not lift. Maybe by Thursday or Friday, I'll be recovered enough to lift.
Hmm.
But I'm playing this by feel. And my general week, I'm going to lift 1 or 2 days a week. But when something like this comes up, I don't make it a law. Oh, I got to be in the gym on Monday. I'm not ready. I was wrestling a lot this weekend and I was having fun. I was a kid. That's what I love to do. Just go out and have fun with it.
I'm glad you said the word recovery in that also just now. Because, I mean, even you who's a seasoned professional, you're still worried about, recovering based on what your body needs. When I first heard the idea that you could do one workout or, two, and like, that's it, type of thing, I was kind of like, say what? Like,
Yep.
what? How? And as I read through the rest of the book, it was like, it started to click to me a little bit. Tell me if I'm getting this right from reading the book. So here I am, layman guy, right, who's reading the book. Um, the distance between the workouts sounds like to me a big factor is everybody recovers differently. You recover differently based on your age too. And so if you need a longer time to recover, then you need a longer space between your workouts. Am I close?
100%. 100%.
All
So
right.
some people, you're going to start off, like I said, you're going to start off 3 days a week, only to learn. I do the first 2 weeks to learn the program. After that, you're going to cut to 2 days a week. I also say you might have to adjust that. If I'm not recovered by the end of the week and I can tell, and here's how I can tell, am I ready to go lift? Do I have a little desire to hit that weight again? And
Hmm.
I love lifting, so for me, I have to regulate that. But might be a time where I do 2 workouts one week, 1 workout the next. So I don't make laws, I just create guidelines. And so then you become an expert at your own recovery.
I
And
love
that's
that.
how I approach it.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the three W's that everything is based on over here.
Excuse me.
Then you launch into how we're all fighting, five big things.
Yes,
Um, and in each interest of time, I know we aren't going to have time to cover every part of the book that I'd love to cover, but I also don't want to give away the secret sauce. I mean, people need to buy the book if they want to know all this stuff.
sure, sure,
So,
sure. Absolutely.
but the fight part got to me because it started to put it into a framework that I could identify with because especially at my age, I am fighting with a lot of these issues. It's not a casual dance, it's a fight. And
Yes,
so when I look at it that way, it helps me mentally. Do you want to speak to that, talk about those?
absolutely. So here's our first fight. It's aging. We're all aging. And after the age of 35, you begin to lose muscle tissue if you don't do anything. And when you lose muscle tissue, you can eat the same amount of food. But what happens is because your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, begins to decline, then you can eat the same amount of food, but that you're not burning at the same time because calorie burn comes from having musculature. The less muscle, the less calories you burn. So what happens then is that's the first fight is aging, which leads into the second fight, which is called sarcopenia. It's age-related muscle loss. And then what happens is, like I just said, my BMR is beginning to decline. Now I'm gaining body fat and I'm losing energy. And I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that loss of energy in the middle of it. And I'm like, why don't I feel good? Well, I'm losing muscle. Now, we're all going to lose muscle. The idea is to lose it at a slower rate. And for some people, you can probably, if you haven't lifted, regain lost muscle after a while. You'll gain some muscle if you haven't lifted before, if you haven't lifted in a long time. And you will notice, like, oh my gosh, I feel good. And what'll happen is you'll want to lift more. And I say, no, the reason you feel good is because you're not lifting more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because people say, oh, I want to exercise more. I'm like, no, 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 don't exercise more. The reason you want to exercise more is because we have the right amount of exercise for you. And your body's saying, I feel good. Now you use that energy not to lift weights more, but to do the things that you enjoy. That's the idea behind that. That's the aging gracefully part. And then I talk about this a lot. Another one, you lose balance. And
Yeah.
isn't it odd how that happens? But you lose balance in the middle of that. And I'm kind of fortunate in the training of jujitsu. It's a lot of balance-based stuff, but I don't have as much balance as I used to. But I still have it. But you start to see the decline. And here's the last thing. I call it the loss of hope because people don't know what you're aging and then you're looking at life and you're like, man, the best part of my life is behind me rather than in front of me. You're losing your friends, relationships aren't what they used to. You go through this depression. All these things are medicine. Like when I talk about the weight training, walking and watching your diet, they're medicine for different parts of your body. And your brain needs that hope in the middle of it. I write about this in the book. I did 8 funerals in like a 12-week period. I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact time frame, but I just remember going, "Oh my gosh, I'm not a depressed person, but I am sad." And I realized what was going on because these were people that I met with at church all the time. We had coffee together, and they're not there anymore. And so that's why I talk about the pastoring things very, very hard because you got to get up there, you got to put a smile on your face, not really a smile, but you got a business, you got a thing you have to do. And what I was not doing was allowing myself to grieve any of those losses or to actually look at what was going on, to actually feel what was actually happening to me. And I was arrested in the middle of that. I'm like, oh, I'm not grieving properly. And so I just took some time to start dealing with and being very honest about this aging thing. And when you have people dying around you, you look at your own mortality. That's a real thing. And so, but I just choose now to, grieve when I can, what I can. We just lost a young man in our jujitsu school in a motorcycle accident over the weekend. And so, oh my gosh, it's just heartbreaking.
I'm
And so my
sorry.
son and I
Yeah.
just sat and talked about that, when we were out of town. But I choose to allow myself to grieve, to allow myself to feel what I'm feeling, and to stay hopeful and positive in the middle of it and use the tools that I put in the book to help people in the middle of that. And I think it really makes a difference.
Great. The no, as I went through the book, it's incredibly organized. It's broken down very well, very simply, but there's a lot to it, as you're reading through it. So, you've got your fighting uh, principles, you've got common mistakes that are made, principles of the program. You've got 10 commandments of the routines. You have an 8-week program with pictures, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's a very complete book. In the interest of time, because I could probably talk to you about this for 2 or 3 hours, because
I love it. Yeah.
I'm going to be starting the program. And yes, folks, I'm announcing that I'm actually going to be starting this program. That's how much I
Well, I
like
want to
the
hear
book.
how it works too. I want to hear how it works
I
for you.
will keep you posted, I promise.
All
Absolutely.
righty.
But I'll be posting on Power Man on Instagram about a lot of this, and then of course in our private group Power Man Within, I'll be posting about it daily. So, but while I'm doing this, the another thing that hit me in your book that maybe we can touch on before we start to kind of wrap things up here, but the 4 pillars of health was something that you put out there, and it wasn't all about lifting weights. And I
Yeah,
thought that was really unique the way you rounded everything out. Maybe speak to that.
sure. And let me tell you this too, what you just said about how I organized the book. When I was putting it together, um, and writing it, my publisher, he said, Steve, the way you write is you write in kind of individual sentences. You tell stories, but he said you write in individual sentences. And he said that it seems to me that like everything you write, when you write in individual sentences, he goes, that actually it means something. And he says, so every sentence you write means something. And my answer was, yes. Yeah. I
Right.
don't waste time. I don't try to waste words. So yeah, I try to write in that way. So I'm just looking through and just kind of gonna see what you were talking about here. You were saying the four, I'm sorry, what did you say the four?
Yeah, the four pillars of health, they were strength training, sleep, spiritual life,
Oh,
and caloric reduction with
yes,
optimal nutrition
yes,
is what.
yeah. So, and I'll tell you who I got that from. I got that from a guy named Dr. Peter Attia. Actually, I'm sure his book's over my shoulder. Dr. Peter Attia, I don't know if you know who that is.
I don't
Very,
know.
yeah, he's a pretty big podcaster and a doctor. And I was listening to his book. It's called Outlive. And I'm listening to his book. I was walking in Florida and I'm listening to his exercise program. And I loved what he talks about medicine 2.0. They use a lot of medicine for health, which is fine. I try to avoid that if I can. I am a very naturalist. And so anyway, I'm walking, I'm listening to that book, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Dr. Pete, you are a chronic overtrainer. I know weight training and I know, but I'm listening to that his training program and I'm like, you're a chronic overtrainer, which means there's going to be injuries in the middle of that. So he talks about that. And the next thing that he goes to is the number of surgeries that he has, which I could have predicted based on how he trained. It's just a little OC. I mean, he's a great guy. I'm not trying to knock him in any way. I think he does a fantastic work, but I think people tend to overtrain. But those four pillars, I added the spiritual aspect because he talked about that as well. I don't think he comes from a Christian perspective, but he just maybe comes from a metaphysical perspective. And I think you look at that as just those are important. The other three are the things that I talk about, just they kind of fit into the weight training thing, but the spiritual aspect is so important. As a Christian, for me, I I always say this, the secret of your success is in your daily routine. I wake up in the morning, I have a whole routine. I spend time, reading my Bible. I have journals. I like to write my prayers out and things like that. That doesn't make me better than anyone. I just find that it works best for me. It connects me to my creator and it gives me peace to deal with life because you know this as well as I do. Life is unforgiving. Life can be very cruel at times.
Oh, for
And
sure.
having a spiritual aspect is so vitally important without being weird about it. You know what I'm saying? Without
Right.
taking it in the weird perspective. But all the other things kind of that's the fourth pillar is I kind of just kind of brought that in. And if you look at it, I'm kind of subversive with my Christianity and I'll try to put it in people's face. All I do is talk about my life. This is how I live my life. If I can be an example to people, I think that really does make a difference. And those four pillars, they just kind of fit. That's kind of how I've lived my life forever. And I think I just try to put some things in some guidelines for people and say, hey, listen, maybe only use one or two of the pillars, but it's still going to make you better. If you use all four, you're really going to notice a difference in the middle of that.
Love it. I appreciate you addressing those and talking about it. I know the other thing we talked about covering again as we kind of sort of wrap up, but we do have a little time left here. So
Sure, absolutely.
you're just moving along so well that I mean I keep getting more and more out of you. This is great. But I know you wanted to talk about you've got the top 10 mistakes
Uh-huh.
that people make. So
Yes.
I don't know if you want to read through those, if you want to
Yeah,
maybe pick out
absolutely.
a few that are like the
I'll
biggest or
yep, I'll pick out a few. So the first one is the best one. And I call it going in like a lion and out like a lamb. And here's what I mean by that. When you have like you look at these big box gyms, your Gold's gyms, all the big ones that are out there now. Those businesses they do very well, but I'll tell you what they do. What they do is they sell most of their memberships in the first 3 months of the year. One guy who was a Gold's Gym manager told me this. He said they lose money for 9 months, but they make so much money upfront that people buy the program. They use the low barrier offer of $10 to $20 a month, and because it's a low price range. That those people they don't make the money off the people who come to the gym. They make the money off the people who don't come into the gym. So they sell these programs up front. They're in the gym in January, they're out in February. They go in like a lion and out like a lamb. And there's reasons for that. The reason is they don't know what most people don't know what they're doing. You look on the internet, there's all this information and it's so confusing.
Yeah.
And so then you got to go and you got to kill yourself. And I don't mean any disrespect, but a lot of the trainers in those places, they're not even educated. And it's a travesty to the industry. And so that's why I kind of speak out a little bit against it and just say, I've had so many clients come into my gym and say, hey, I've tried a trainer before. I've heard about you. And it seems that you're safer, but I went to, blah, 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 and they had me flipping tires. And you're a 55-year-old woman. I'm like, are you going to go work at the tire shop? Is that the idea behind that? It makes no sense. And so what you're
Right.
doing is you're putting people at a huge chance of injury for a very low return. And so I think those things are important. The other thing is you got to have a plan. A plan is important. That's why I put this plan together. If you have a plan, then you can work toward what's the next mistake is people don't have goals. There's no real direction. We have to have specific goals. What's your goal? Well, I want to feel better. That's pretty esoteric. That's, what is feeling better going to look like for you? Give me some detail on that.
Right.
Well, I want to fit in my clothes better. Great. So we're going to look at that. Now, that's going to involve probably some body fat loss. And so now let's talk about, well, I want to lose weight. Well, that's not a goal, but we need a specific goal. I want to lose a specific amount of weight in a particular amount of time. Now we have the goal made specific. Then what we do is when we reach that goal, then we redefine our goal. Then we look at maintenance possibly, or I always look at weight loss or it's fat loss, not weight loss, because we want to keep our muscle bone and our organ, together, but we want to lose body fat. So what I do is I look at fat loss as climbing Mount Everest. So you're going to climb for a little while, then you're going to set up a base camp and you're going to kind of calm down for a little bit. Then you're going to reset it and you're going to go another little way and you're going to set another goal. And then when you get to a point, you're not going to live at the top of Everest. You're not going to live there at all. But what you are going to do is you're going to visit it. And I think that's really, really important.
Hmm.
So I visit the top of the mountain, then I come down and I find my maintenance. And then let's say I'm using a vacation as my idea. And so then next year, I'm still living at this area, but we're going to visit that peak again just for my vacation idea. Does all that make sense?
Yeah. So I love the analogy.
Yeah.
It's
So
great.
that's how I kind of approach that. And
Yeah.
then, you kind of dance around. It's like, hey, I really like at 59 years old, I used to be a bodybuilder. So I'm like, I want to get my body fat levels under 10%. And so I went for that. It was very hard work at my age, and I look very skinny because I don't carry as much muscle as I used to. Because, like the jujitsu thing, it's not conducive to gaining muscle. You're going to lose a little muscle because you have a lot of cardiovascular. But I understand that. So I sacrifice that in the middle of it. And so I make those adjustments, but I just lift weights and cut my calories within reason and kind of go from there. And I was able to reach that goal. And so, but then I kind of back off a little bit and go from there.
Nice. Nice. I loved that one. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yep, that makes total sense. And the gym thing I've heard before. And I know guys who say the same thing. Once you start up in the gym, you're all excited and you're going. And then even when you drop off and mentally you've pretty much stopped doing it, you don't want to stop paying for it because you're telling yourself, I'll get back to it. I know I'm going to
That's
go back.
exactly right. That's
Right.
the site. They actually
Yeah.
do studies for that psychology. Oh, I'm not paying that much. And so you got a thousand members paying $20 a month, not going to the gym. Guess
Not
what?
going.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Here's another one. I'll give you one more.
Yeah, go
A
for it.
lot of people become too rigid in the middle of it. It's what I
Mm.
said earlier about recovery. Just because I want to stay with my program. Sometimes if I'm lazy and I know I have to work out, that's fine. There's a difference between being lazy and then being motivated. And so I'm not using the laziness excuse not to stay on my program. But there are times when if I get so rigid, like if I'm rigid, I would have lifted weights today
Mhm.
even after my weekend, that would have been detrimental to my body. That would not have helped me whatsoever. That would have made my body worse rather than better.
Right.
And so you have to, and that's what I talk about. When you start, you want to be really calorie conscious, you want to be really workout conscious. And then as you get better, then you can kind of go, oh, my body feels better when I do it this way or that way. And so the rigidity begins to decline once I move in the proper direction.
I love that you brought that one up. In our private group, we were doing a kind of a fitness challenge thing, and I mean, it's nothing like what you're doing here in the book, but it was just designed to get people moving,
Yeah,
and say, hey,
yeah,
just every day be accountable to, sign into the group and say this is what I did or didn't do. And even if you didn't do anything, just sign into the group and say, you know what, today I took the day off, but tomorrow we're going to do this. And at least it was accountability and building habits and moving. Um, so I guess we want to be rigid. We want to keep it going. We don't want to sort of halfway do the program. But by the same token, like when is it okay really to take the day off and not work out? Because you don't want to just do it just because you're a little tired because it is new, what you're
yeah,
doing. But
yeah.
when is
No,
it actually okay?
great question. I have a lady, cancer survivor, 72 years old. She's a Monday workout person, and she came in and she suffers from a little depression. She came in, I love her. Her name's Eileen. She came in today. She goes, Steve, I don't feel like being here. I'm like, that's good. That's okay, Eileen. But you got up and you're here. She left with a smile on her face. And so that was a big thing. But let's look at it from a different perspective. Say I have a cold and I'm not feeling good, but I got to work out. I got to work out. I don't think that's going to benefit you. I think if you're going to do that, maybe you get out and do a lower intensity workout. But the problem with that is once you start moving, you start feeling a little better, then you take it too much. So you have to balance those things out. If I'm feeling like I have chest congestion or something like that, a definite no. If I was out late last night or did something I shouldn't do, it might be better to take an extra day before you do your workout. So make sure your body's recovered and you want to learn where your optimal performance is. For me, 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning is my best workout time. So I try to optimize my performance, use a little of the same music on the way to the gym. I like that kind of thing. And then I just get really, really focused. I got my goals in mind and I'm going to be uncomfortable for the next 15 minutes, but I'm going to embrace that discomfort and I'm going to walk away from there. I'm going to go home and take a 20-minute nap because I have to every time because I know how to train my muscles hard and I know how to really focus with that. And so I just learn in the middle of that. But if I'm just being lazy, I just say, no, I can recognize me being lazy. And I'm going to be better off when I get in the gym and get something done. I'm going to feel so much better in the middle of that.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
I love that. And I mean, there's so much more to the book. Like I said, we could talk about it forever.
Yeah, no, I'll help you in your private group. If there's any questions you have, you want to throw them my way, I'll help in any way I can. I love helping people. So that's one of my big things.
I appreciate it. I may call on you for that.
Yeah,
Hopefully
for
it's
sure.
not, me at the end of my rope going, all right, help me out. But
Yeah.
I'm not in terrible shape. I'm just, I'm not the linebacker I used to be, so at some point you have
No,
to
absolutely.
got
And
to
let,
start
let,
over.
let me give you this too. When you start off, you're going to feel really good. And it's about the 3 week point. I call it the grind. So it's not going to feel that great. And you're going to have to grind. You're going to have to embrace that grind for a little while. Then all of a sudden, you're going to get past that. And then you're going to go, I feel fantastic now. So expect the ups and downs. It's not linear. It's going to be a challenge mentally in the middle of this. And that's the best way to approach it. And so the big thing is you stay in it. Just stay in it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I will take that advice 100%. All right. Goodness, Steve, listen, I want to give you just the floor for the last couple of minutes. You've thrown so much out here. I love it. And we've gone over, on my normal time, but I don't care because you were just throwing so much good information out there. I didn't want to stop. So just, kind of as we close up here, is there anything that I forgot to ask you that I should have? Is there anything that maybe I asked you and we want to just drive home a little more, or maybe a leave behind, something that you want to leave people with? The last couple minutes are yours.
Yeah, here's my closer generally. Weight training it's medicine for your body. Watching your diet is medicine for your biology. Those three things are going to make your life so much different. Use those times as medicine because our mental health. Never forget the spiritual aspect of it. I'm big into that because that'll change your life. And it'll make a huge difference. It'll make your relationships better. It'll make your life better, and you'll just be better off in the long run. And that's the whole goal.
All right. I love that. Love that. Love that. Okay. All right. Goodness. Steve McKinney, author and pastor and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, served a million different titles, but one fantastic mission and absolutely loved your book. I'm going to make sure all the key stuff is in the show notes. Thank you for coming on and sharing what you
Oh,
have today.
thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Love talking about this stuff. Very passionate about it. It's my life. It's my
Thank you.
life's work. So I hope you guys love it. And if I can help in any way, you just let me know, okay?
Will do.
And yeah, yeah. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Folks, this has been another great episode of the Power Man podcast. All of you fathers and husbands out there, I know we got a lot of guys who are in this age group and, who are always talking about the same thing and are always talking about, man, I got to get back. I got to get started. I got to get active again. This is literally a how-to. And it incorporates, some spiritual healing and things like that that I think we all need. Check out the book. Check out the book. You will not be sorry. I was not. And I'm going to start it, like I said, and get it going. And you'll all hear all about it. So, listen, the reason we bring on powerful men like this with powerful programs, and the reason that we challenge ourselves to be better every day and better today than we were yesterday is because you have value, because you are worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.